Tired of spending hours drafting proposals? What if you could turn a form submission into a professional PDF quote delivered to your client in minutes without lifting a finger? In this video, I'll show you exactly how. Let's get started. So here's the plan. We're going to build an end-to-end quote automation using Jotform, MailerLite, and OttoKit. Jotform grabs the client details from the form, MailerLite handles the workflow, and OttoKit does the heavy lifting. By the end of this video, you'll have a system that generates a professional PDF proposal, stores it in Google Drive, and emails it to your prospect, all on autopilot. If you want the step-by-step written guide and troubleshooting tips, I've put together a complete setup manual. You'll find the link in the description below. It includes everything we'll cover in today's video, plus bonus templates and common fixes that will save you hours of trial and error. Let's dive in. Let me just get started with how I put all this together. So we are in Jotform. This is the form builder. Here's my quote estimate proposal form. And I'm using a fictitious security guard services company as my scenario-based example here. And so we've got generic information, generic form fields, organization, security service type, service location type, start and end date, specific security service requirements, all pretty generic stuff that you would need in order to determine proposal. We're going to have ChatGPT do that for us, crunch some numbers. So we'll get to that in a little bit. From here, once a person submits it, it gets sent over to MailerLite. MailerLite is acting basically as my CRM. And so all that data gets added to custom fields that I have in MailerLite. So let me go ahead and fill out this form. I've got a sample right here ready to go. So I'm going to click on submit. Now I get a simple thank you message. You could redirect this to your website. You could have a much more advanced thank you message here, but for this example, I'm just saying, hey, thank you for your submission. What MailerLite's going to do is going to activate an automation. Once the data is received, they're going to get an automatic email sent to my inbox that says, hey, great to hear from you. Thanks so much for submitting your quote, your request for quote. We've received it and we're going to be sending something out to you very shortly. So let's go over to our email. So here's our email from MailerLite. So that came out pretty quickly. I do have a delay in the automation so that it slows it down a little bit. You could tweak that a lot more. You could set it for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever you think is reasonable for a person to expect a response back with our PDF. So basically it just says, hey, thanks, great to hear from you. Excited to have the opportunity to partner with you, et cetera, et cetera. So this is just, hey, we received it, expect something else from us real soon. In addition, we also get a Jotform submission. So on the Jotform side, I get an email with all the data that a person has submitted. I also have access to the submissions table in Jotform, so I can review all the data there as well. So now we just have to wait for the automation to finish so we get our final email with the PDF. So here's our final email. And again, it took a couple of minutes because I have that delay in there and you could enhance that at any time. So here is our final email that we get that is received by a potential client who's interested in our services. Thank you for your inquiry, for consideration to support your security needs. So it inserts the company name that we submitted, inserts our name so it knows who we are and is communicating that out. And based on the property size and the length of the period of time, it's saying that you'd probably need this many security officers to ensure comprehensive on-site protection. So the estimated cost is right here. And this is a preliminary estimate based on assumed standard coverage. And it puts in the total hours of an 8-hour day, but I'll probably enhance that a little bit to make it a 12-hour day. Sometimes that happens. But you get the idea. So you can either click to view and download the PDF. This is a different message, kind of the same, but again, communicating the same information in a different way and some terms and conditions as well. So let me show you how I put all of this together now that we've had a quick walkthrough of how it all works. So back on Jotform, we're going to go over to the settings tab and we're going to go into integrations. Now I have it integrated with MailerLite, And that's easy enough to do. You have to go to MailerLite. Let me just do that now. I'm over in MailerLite now. If you go into integrations, let me just open up a new tab so you can see it. You'll need an API. So you click on use. You can see here I have one for Jotform right there. So if you'll need to generate a new token, copy that API key. So when you go to connect your MailerLite and Jotform, you can put in that API key. But once you've done that once, you just have to do it once. And so you don't have to keep on redoing it for every single form. It already knows that you've integrated with MailerLite. Let me just show you how I've put these together. So basically I've mapped the data that's coming out of the form, and I've mapped it to MailerLite custom fields that I've created in MailerLite. And so I've mapped all that out, and I've also added in a group quote proposal, so that whenever someone submits this form, all of that data gets over to MailerLite. Then over in MailerLite, if we go over there again, we'll go into the subscribers tab. And if we go into fields, this is where you set up all your custom fields. So you'll see custom fields here: security service start date, security service location, end date, details, size, all the same stuff that I just showed you. Again, we're just mapping it over. So all of that data is technically going to be stored in MailerLite, so that can act as my client relationship management. So I can go off and do segmentation. So I've created a segment here called quotes. So I have 9 subscribers in there with my testing, and I can go in and view that segment, send emails to that segment, that type of thing. So I find it a lot cleaner to have the data in MailerLite versus Jotform. That's how I'm using MailerLite. You could use your own CRM. So let me go over now to the automations component, and I'll show you that. So we'll go over to the automations tab here. Here's my quote estimate workflow. I'm just going to hit pause here so we can take a look at how I set this up. So I click on edit here. So anyone who joins the quote proposal group gets added into this workflow. And here's the email that we received. So this is pretty cut and dry. Anyone gets added to the group, they get the email saying, hey, thanks so much for filling out our quote. We'll hear from us soon, type of thing. Our next step here is a webhook. Now, a webhook is the information that's going to be sent out from MailerLite and received by OttoKit. So we need that data in OttoKit so that we can run our automation. So I've opted in to put a webhook here, and so we can run and get the data into OttoKit. Now, this is not challenging at all. It does require a secret key and a webhook URL. And the webhook URL is coming out of OttoKit, so you grab it from there. The secret key, you got to go back into that integrations here. And right here where it says webhook, click on use. And then you scroll down here and you click on generate webhook. And it's going to ask you for the URL, right? It's going to ask you for the webhook name, the endpoint URL, and the webhook event. And then you'd select all the events that you want to capture. And I pretty much selected them all, and so that we can get the data into OttoKit. I'm going through this pretty quickly, but again, the complete guide will have all of this in detail. So here on the OttoKit side of things, here's our automation. So let me zoom in so we can all see a little bit clearer. So we're using, again, this webhook to catch the data from MailerLite. So going from Jotform to MailerLite into OttoKit. You could go from Jotform to OttoKit, but again, I wanted to have MailerLite as my CRM to manage customer data. So then we are using ChatGPT to be the brain. So let's take a look at our brain here and what it's doing. So under our model, we are using the latest. I'm giving it what it is as its role. I've tasked it to estimate the quote, request and output professionally structured data fields. I say it's inserted into Google Slides. It could be Google Slides, it could be Google Docs, however you want to format your proposal template, that's up to you. So here's what it has access to. So I give it the information that's coming in from our webhook. So it has John, the Smith, the first and last name, the email address, service type, location type, all the stuff that was generated by the form has access to all of that stuff to then come up with a price for the customer. So here's our pricing guide in Logic. So our standard operation hours are 6 to 10 p.m. Overtime hours are this. Temporary surcharge is this. Long-term discount, you can subtract 5% for contracts over 6 months or longer. Emergency dispatch, if it's less than 24 hours that you need someone, it's a $150 surcharge. And then workplace violence, minimum 3-hour flat fee to cover. And then I give it the how to figure out the price. So for retail loss prevention, it's this price. So it's the service type, which is retail loss prevention. Standard hourly rate is $40. Overtime is $60. The guard ratio is based on the square footage of what the person selects. And then the minimum hours is 4 hours for retail loss prevention, 4 hours for armed security, executive protection, everything is 4 hours except for workplace violence. So it's based on the size of the area that you need security and also the cost per hour for the security officer / guard, whatever you need. And then we ask it to calculate all that information. And so we're telling it how to do that. So you're going to use the provided event attendees if it's asked for an event venue and the property size, and use the guard ratio. Round up to the nearest whole number to determine the lowest end guard count. And again, for workplace violence, it's a little different. And then we're saying, hey, calculate the estimated cost range. So taking all of that calculation into as a factor, total the number of standard hours and overtime hours, low end cost by multiplying the low end guard count. You can read it all here. And again, I'll have this all in the guide for you. And then number 3 is to generate the letter that will be in the proposal. So we're saying, hey, dear client name, and then insert client name. And then we give it an estimated total, and I give it an example of how I want it out there. And I'm asking it to close with a professional closing and all that good stuff. Now in the messaging, I'm adding in all the data that it needs to determine a cost, okay? So that is our brains. It's doing a lot, but it's doing it very quickly and efficiently. So we'll just save that. Right, and then we get into the brain, splitting of the brain matter, because that comes in as one lump of content, and we want to split that all out. So I'm using it at the dear part because that's where it gets truncated off, so I can use that. And you'll see in the proposal template, I have dear added. So where dear is in there in the output, I cut off dear and then I add it manually in the proposal, and you'll see. So that's all that's doing. It's just splitting it all up so I can get access to the fields. And then I have a couple more formations for the date, so I can get the current date in a nice format, human-friendly format. And then I'm also using it to do a count of 30 days to determine a valid until date, so how long the estimate is good for. And then we get into generating the proposal. Options here, we're doing create document from template new, the new version that they have. And our configuration, we're selecting our template. And in our template, it has all of our field. So we have a date in here, valid, name, address, phone number, email, and that's where you see the dear again. So I've added that back in. And then we have paragraphs. So that's all the output from ChatGPT. And then we have some other static information along with our logo of our fictitious company. So, okay. So I put it in the root. You can put it in a folder, however you want to do it. Then I map the data coming from ChatGPT or the webhook, and I put it into our proposal template here. So all of that gets added in, and it's good to go. We'll just click save there. So what will happen is you'll get something like this. So it'll say event security John Smith quote. So that's how it would be generated, right? So it gives you all the information there. And then if we go into the next step, we're going to convert it into a PDF so that we can send it off to our potential client. So in our select options here, Google Docs, we're doing a download document. It's going to be a Google Docs connection. We're going to need a select document. So we're using the one that was just generated. So we're grabbing that ID. So we just hit the @ symbol here. We're grabbing this ID here, document ID, and placing it again into our select document. And our content type obviously is PDF. That's pretty easy. And then we're adding that PDF to our drive. So we are putting it in a folder here called Security Services, just so it's organized. And we're using the file that was generated in our last step. I hit the @ symbol here at the download document step. We're grabbing this file URL right here. We're putting it in there. And then we're putting in a file name based on the event type, the person's first name and last name, and the date, just so that we have a record of it. And then we're asking ChatGPT to come with us again to write up a email that will be sent out. So again, we're asking it to write a personalized email to potential client, deliver a preliminary service estimate. And I've asked it to use HTML because the formatting looks a lot better. And so I'm using paragraph tags and strong tags to emphasize important words or phrases. And I give it an example of what I would think would be bold. And then I have access, let it know that it has access to all these data fields. And again, I'm giving it task instructions along with how to sign off and how I want the output to come in. So we can then again do the splitting. So we'll do the splitting. This time I'm using a pipe or a vertical bar as our splitter. And so we get our data output here. So our output would be subject line is separate from the body of the email. Okay, that's all we're doing there. So we can separate it out. So when we send our email, we can put in a subject, and separate body. So here's our delay. And again, this is what you can finesse. You could set it to 20 minutes. You could set it to 30 days if you wanted to, however long you think is reasonable for a person to wait to receive something that's automated. And the last step we have here is obviously to send the email. So you'd put in your email address here. You'd send it to the person who signed up. And again, we're getting that data from the webhook. And we're putting in, there's our subject line. So we just set the @ symbol here. Here's our split down here. So here's our subject line right here. That's the one we want. And that's what we put in there. And then the content type application JSON, that's hit or miss. Sometimes if I remove that, SMTP Go has a headache and doesn't like it very well. And so I just added in, I could try to remove it and see what happens. But under show optional fields is where we get into our HTML body. Since we're using HTML as an output, we want to use the HTML body. And so here is our paragraphs that's coming in from our generated email that's coming in from ChatGPT. And then I have a simple call here that here's your estimated proposal in PDF with a link to the file in Google Drive. So there you have it. Your quote process is now completely automated. If you build this system, I'd love to see it in action. So drop a comment below and let me know how it goes. And for those who want, again, the detailed written guide with all the webhook settings and templates, check the link in the description. Also, you might want to subscribe for more information workflows like this, because I've got some crazy good ones coming up. I'll see you in the next video.